What's the story with Jeffrey Epstein? Was he an intelligence asset of a certain foreign power? Who all was on that list of visitors to Epstein Island? Well, in this video, I have the answers to them questions.
And then a few weeks later, I was able to get an interview with Ari Ben-Menashe, who was the handler of Robert Maxwell.
Robert Maxwell was Ghislaine Maxwell's father. You know, Jeffrey Epstein's little madame, who's sitting in prison for 20 years.
Back in the Iran-Contra days. He's kind of a famous spy figure in the world.
Is your employer, Robert Maxwell, owner of the Daily Mirror, you say that he was an Israeli agent, and as was his daughter.
He was not my employer. I would like to correct that.
Okay.
We worked together with him.
And you say that his daughter, Ghislaine, also, though, worked for Israel, and it was Robert Maxwell who introduced Jeffrey Epstein to Ghislaine Maxwell way before the 1990s, as mainstream media is reporting.
Correct.
The most alarming allegations that you've been making are that the entire Epstein operation was a honey trap operation to entrap politicians, policymakers, celebrities, people in the media eye, basically to become Israel's assets.
Correct. That it became basically an intelligence operation to entrap different politicians.
Meeting in Montreal, where he told me on the record that Epstein was a spy for the Israelis. He worked for Israeli military intelligence, the same arm that he was a commander in years earlier when he was working with Maxwell. And he gave me, the exact reason that they said that they were doing it, and that Epstein was sent into America was to stop Clinton. You know, there's a big fear amongst the Israelis that Clinton would become another Carter, a very left-wing, very left-leaning, pro-Palestinian guy, and they did not want him to do that. So they sent Epstein in really as to compromise him, to get close to him, to compromise him through money, and to compromise him through other means. And I would say in some regards, that turned out to be very successful. Epstein became one of Clinton's closest friends in some ways, and also financial advisors in terms of setting up the Clinton Foundation. But that's where you get a lot of the Clinton stuff. You know, there's the reason why there are so many Democrats in this list, in the so-called list, is because what Epstein and Ghislaine were doing was they were trying to blackmail Democrats. They were trying to get compromise on the Democrats because they were fearing that the Democrats were going to be too left-leaning. So that's what they needed the dirt on them for. So you don't see a lot of Republicans going down to the island, and you don't see a lot of Republicans on this list because that wasn't the target. The target was Democrats. The target was about Clinton, making sure that there wasn't going to be a giant peace deal with the Israelis and the Palestinians. And that's why it looks to everyone from the outside like it's some sort of democratic cabal.
Epstein Island, confirmed by multiple sources. Bill Clinton, George Mitchell, Alex Baldwin, Ralph Fiennes, George Hamilton, Dustin Hoffman, Kevin Spacey, Liz Hurley, Laura Hutton, Janice Dixon, Naomi Campbell, Christy Turlington, Henry Kissinger, which may be one of the most evil men on the world.
He is, yeah.
Joan Rivers, Courtney Love, Mick Jagger, Courtney Guest, Phil Collins, Simon LeBon, Charlie Rose of PBS, Richard Branson, Candace Bushel, Tom Ford, Vera Wang, Nadia Byerlin, Co Stark, and here's some more. Seth Green, James Gunn, Dan Schneider, Steven Spielberg, Tom Hanks, Stephen Colbert, Kevin Spacey, Kathy Griffin, Oprah Winfrey, Sean Carter, Beyonce Knowles, Anthony Kiedis, John Legend, Christy Teigen Tyler, Ben Affleck, Stephen Collins, Will Ferrell, Eminem, Jeffrey Jones, Victor Salva, Mark Rector, Charlie Sheen, Tyler Grasham, Madonna, Catherine Hudson, Gwen Stefani, Stefani Germota, James Franco, Will Smith. Oh, has Will Smith been in the news lately? Justin Rowland, John Cusack, Anderson Cooper, Demi Moore, Brian Affleck, Meryl Streep, Wanda Sykes, Chelsea Handler, Michelle Wolf, Pharrell Williams, Quentin Tarantino, Robert Downey Jr.
Some of the things that I've been hearing, and maybe you could tell us here, is that it wasn't just the Democrats, but and some Republicans. Well, first of all, let's also remember that Donald Trump was a Democrat at the time.
Yeah.
He was not a Republican, so
Right.
it would make sense why he would be on the list. And we know he's on the list. That's 100% that he's been on the flight logs. He's been friends with Epstein. Epstein's been to Mar-a-Lago.
We can also say something else, though, because here's the thing. Trump, I don't think, ever went to Epstein Island. He was never a victim of the blackmail. For Trump, he was more like a parallel figure to Epstein. They were operating in the very same way, in very similar circles. In fact, the one big tell there that I keep finding so fascinating is for the last 6 years, between 2013 and 2018, they both banked at Deutsche Bank, at the wealthy clients section of Deutsche Bank. Now, there's a reason for that. Deutsche Bank went after people that were rich but couldn't get funding anywhere else because they were a little bit on the dangerous to loan side. And in Trump's case, he'd lost a lot of money and needed these new loans. And in Epstein's case, he had been convicted of this child abuse. So, no bank wanted to deal with him. But somehow Deutsche Bank found a way to accommodate both. Interesting that their financial careers started aligning with Bear Stearns, with Ace Greenberg at Bear Stearns. And they both sort of ended their interactions with each other at the end there with Deutsche Bank.
William Burns, former head of the CIA under Joe Biden. William Burns, current CIA director and former Deputy Secretary of State, had 3 scheduled meetings with Jeffrey Epstein in 2014 after Epstein's 2008 conviction for soliciting a minor. These included a lunch in Washington, D.C., and 2 visits to Epstein's Manhattan townhouse, with Epstein's driver reportedly arranged to take Burns to the airport after one meeting. Catherine Rumler, former counsel for the Obama White House. Catherine Rumler is Chief Legal Officer and General Counsel of Goldman Sachs, a role she has held since 2021 after joining the firm in 2020. She previously served as White House counsel to President Barack Obama from 2011 to 2014, and earlier worked as a federal prosecutor, notably on the Enron task force, and as an associate of counsel to President Bill Clinton. She had a professional relationship with Jeffrey Epstein from 2014 to 2017 while at Latham & Watkins. She met with him over 36 times for business purposes, including client introductions like J.P. Morgan Chase and Ariana D. Rothschild. Yeah, I'm sure them were for business purposes. Noam Chomsky. Noam Chomsky, the renowned linguist and scholar, met with Jeffrey Epstein at least twice in 2015 and 2016, as documents in Epstein's private calendar reveal. The meetings, which included a dinner at Epstein's Manhattan townhouse, involved discussions with other intellectuals like Woody Allen and former Israeli Prime Minister Ehud Barak. Chomsky stated he was introduced to Epstein through Barak. Leon Botstein. Leon Botstein, president of Bard College, had a financial and professional relationship with Jeffrey Epstein, meeting him approximately 24 times between 2012 and 2016 to solicit donations. Epstein gave Bard $75,000 in 2011, 66 laptops in 2015, and paid Botstein $150,000 in 2016 through his Gratitude America Foundation, which Botstein donated to the college. Botstein invited Epstein to campus events, including an opera and concert, where Epstein arrived with young female assistants. Despite knowing Epstein's 2008 conviction for soliciting a minor, Botstein justified the interactions, citing fundraising needs and rehabilitation principles. And this is the big one, Ehud Barak. Ehud Barak, former Israeli Prime Minister, had extensive ties with Jeffrey Epstein, meeting him approximately 36 times between 2013 and 2017, including visits to Epstein's. Ehud Barak, former Israeli Prime Minister, had extensive ties with Jeffrey Epstein, meeting him approximately 36 times between 2013 and 2017, including visits to Epstein's Manhattan townhouse and a 2014 private jet flight in Florida. Barak received $2.3 million from the Epstein-linked Wexner Foundation, 2004 to 2006 and secured a $1 million investment from Epstein in 2015 for an Israeli startup, Carbine. He was introduced to Epstein in 2003 by Shimon Peres and attended meetings with intellectuals like Noam Chomsky.